Hello and welcome to Northern Nightmares, your home for nightmarish stories throughout Canada and beyond, and I'm your host Andrew. Good and evil are often described in many forms: light and dark, order and chaos, life and death. Always two sides of a coin constantly at war with each other, and a perfect balance. Depending on your point of view, both can be right and even wrong. For the next 3 weeks, we're going to explore a side of humanity in which both sides have been at war. This series will focus on the world of religion, more specifically, the story of God and Satan. In this first part, I bring you the origins of Satan, because before he was given that name that brings fear to some, he was known as Lucifer. Lucifer had different ideals to which went against God. For this, he was banished to earth to rot in the bowels of hell. To this he became the ruler, and is here souls of sinners burn for an eternity. This is what the Christians have been preaching for many years. But what if I said Lucifer's ideals have become someone else's guide to living a different way of life? Well, we're not just exploring the origins of the devil, but the story of one man that turned it into scripture and created the Satanic Bible. I present to you the story of the Satanic Church and Anton LaVay, the man that started it all. Before we get into Anton's story, let's first dive into the origins of Lucifer. Where did he come from, and why is he viewed as being a red half-man, half-goat creature? Why is he the epiphany of evil? This is something I've always wondered, as I never grew up with religion. I've lived my life how I choose, never wondering if I should go to paradise or to be eternally damned. So I view religion as just stories. I could say they're metaphors on how to live a good life. Now, I'm not saying I shun the idea of God, but I'm open-minded to the idea. For the next little bit, I'll just be another storyteller and not a follower of the faith. In Roman folklore, Lucifer in Latin was called Lightbringer. He was the original name for the planet Venus and often depicted as a man wielding a torch. In Christianity, Lucifer was depicted as a fallen angel, and he was banished to earth and then to hell because he had different views for humans. This went against God's rule, and for this he was kicked out of heaven. It's often said Lucifer tried to usurp God and become the new ruler. However, as we know today, Lucifer has become the Lord of Hell, renamed Satan or the Devil in the Christian world. Most common depiction is a hybrid man-goat entity, sometimes all black or even red. In many countries, the devil is Satan and Lucifer is a demon. Both are two separate beings, and as for hell, it's governed by 4 princes of hell. These are 4 considered demons: Belial, Lucifer, Leviathan, and Satan. In pagan traditions, Satan is called Baphomet, and he's described as the goat-man creature. If many of my listeners are fans of Supernatural, the TV show, you know Lucifer is described as a archangel, a son of God. Lucifer, as God's son, works well for this story. However, the original 4 archangels in the Bible are Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel. In the show, Uriel is replaced by Lucifer, and Uriel is just a regular angel. As for the Satanic Bible, Anton LaVay takes all these stories about Lucifer, the devil, and more, and interprets them in his own way, excluding Supernatural as it came much later into our lives, 2005 to be exact, but that show plays into these stories as well, and Anton's version. So let's now dive into the story of Mr. LaVay and how his vision changed the modern world, most notably in North America. Anton Salvador LaVay was born April 11th, 1930 in Chicago, Illinois, and originally with the birth name of Howard Stanton LaVay. He changed his name to Anton later in life as he founded the Church of Satan, but we'll get to that soon. His parents were Michael LaVay and Gertrude Augusta, and they were an average American family with mixed European ancestry. During my research, I couldn't find a whole lot on his childhood, But what I did find was that it was honestly kind of normal, pretty much boring. His life is like L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, muddled with made-up lore and boring backstory. Anton's is very similar, both having a wild lore that they claim is what made them who they are. But, at some point during his life, his family moved to San Francisco in his early years. Growing up he had a love for music. His favorite instruments were the keyboard, like the piano, and the accordion. As a boy, he often played the piano while attending Baptist churches, and an oboe during high school. His love for the musical arts would help him with his founding of the Satanic Church. When he was 16, he decided to drop out of high school and supposedly joined a circus as a cage boy in a lion act and even playing the calliope. There's no evidence that proves this claim because a lot of his early life is very murky. Anton would often change his facts about his life to make his story sound better than what it was. You could say he was trying to build up his own lore for his followers of his church. Another claim he made, which was proven false, was that his grandmother was a gypsy from Transylvania. The Secret Life of a Satanist was a biography wrote about Anton during the rise of the church by his friend, partner, and a leading member of the Church of Satan, Blanc Barton. Barton described his claim in more detail, stating that his grandmother came from a gypsy father and a Jewish mother, born both from Transylvania. However, she was born in Ukraine, and Anton's parents were both born in America. Like I said, I think Anton wanted to create a more interesting backstory for himself as the creator of Satanism because he knew his life was boring as hell. No pun intended. In the winter of 1948, he started working at bars and lounges and nightclubs in Los Angeles as an organist. Another one of his crazy claims during this time, he had a brief affair with an unknown Marilyn Monroe, as she was a dancer at the Mayan Theater, which was a burlesque house. This was later challenged and proven false by the owner, Paul Valentine. He stated that she never was a dancer, and the Mayan Theater was never used for burlesque shows. In 1950, Anton would move back to San Francisco, where he would meet his first wife, Carol Lansing. The two would later marry in the same year. At this time, Anton was about 20 and Carol was 15. By 1952, Carol would give birth to their daughter, Carla LaVay. Between 1950 and 1953, the Korean War was happening. This war was fought between North and South Korea. The North had China and the Soviet Union backing them up. South had the United Nations and the US leading the assist. This one was the first proxy war that led up to the Cold War. Now, how is it Anton didn't get drafted? Well, he avoided this by studying criminology at the City College of San Francisco. Afterwards, he attained a job with the San Francisco Police Department as a photographer, where he worked for at least 3 years. It was later determined, though, that he never worked for the SFPD. There was no record of his employment. Just another false tale. All these false claims were found out by a journalist named Lawrence Wright. Wright was very interested in the story of Anton, but was a skeptic of his backstory. Between this time and the 60s, it's thought that this is when he developed an interest with the occult, as he claims he worked as a psychic investigator. In 1960, Carol and him would divorce, and after this, he would be seen with Diana Hegarty, his companion for the next 24 years. Diana also gave birth to his second daughter, Ziana Galtry LaVay. It's the 60s where Anton starts to gain celebrity status around San Francisco and leading up to his church. Anton was starting to develop quite the status for himself around the city. He was often seen cruising the streets in his coroner's van that he had owned. With this, he could transport his instruments for gigs that he had. One location was the Lost Weekend Cocktail Lounge, where he was seen playing the Wurlitzer, a 3-organ keyboard. He gained most of his fame from his paranormal research that he had conducted for clients. On Friday nights, he began presenting night lectures on the occult and rituals. Because of this, he had a small circle of members that he attracted. He called this group the Order of the Trapezoid, and his members suggested that this was the start of a new religion. This would be the starting point of his soon-to-be Church of Satan. On April 30th, 1966, according to Anton, he shaved his head completely to look like an ancient executioner. He also declared the founding of the Church of Satan and proclaimed 1966 as Year 1. It is theorized that his new look was inspired by the television show The Wild Wild West. One of his episodes was titled Night of the Druid's Blood, which originally aired March 25th, 1966, and starred the great comedian Don Rickles. Rickles was casted as an evil magician and satanic cult leader named Asmodeus. This character matched the exact look Anton had presented himself. In 1967, Anton performed a satanic wedding ceremony for 2 people. Media had dubbed him the Black Pope. Anton also performed satanic baptisms. The first was his 3-year-old daughter, Ziena, and proclaimed her to Satan and the left-hand path. This would gain worldwide publicity and was recorded in a later LP record of his dubbed the Satanic Mass. Anton had built up a religion by incorporating many different ideological influences. Some were Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher from the late 1800s, Ayn Rand, a Russian-American writer known for developing a philosophical system called Objectivism, H.L. McEachern, an American journalist, satirist, and often writing about the social scenes of the world, and finally, social Darwinism. With all this, he created the beginnings of the church. He also reworked excerpts into his ideology from famous books like Ragnar's Redbeard's Might is Right, or The Survival of the Fittest. He also made Satanized versions of John Dee's Enochian keys to create books of his own, The Satanic Witch and The Satanic Rituals. Enochian is known as the occult language with many different symbols. It is said that this language belongs to the heavenly beings we know as angels. The book Satanic Rituals was also inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft was a fictional, weird, horror fantasy writer, most famous for the creation of Cthulhu and what is now called Lovecraftian horror. This genre usually involves other dimensional beings and tentacle-like creatures. All of this would help him with the creation of the Satanic Bible. The Satanic Bible holds a collection of works all published by Anton, all made into a religious text for his satanic religion. Now it's not considered sacred text like the Christian Bible, but a document for contemporary Satanism. It's composed of 4 books: the Book of Satan, the Book of Lucifer, the Book of Belial, and the Book of Leviathan, the 4 princes of hell. Believers of Satanism are often considered atheistic Satanists, as this book explores one's views on nature and instinct, often thought that God and Satan are not entities, but just a projection of personality. In my opinion, the Satanic Bible just gives people a different way of looking at life. This perspective would be different than the Holy Bible, as I also think the Holy Bible is also just a way of living, but we all know the fanatics of both sides make it out to be more than that. This book has been printed at least 30 times, sold all through the world, and selling at least 1 million copies. So let's start by exploring what the Satanic Bible is all about and why the Christians hate it so much. The beginning of the Bible has 9 satanic statements that build different ways of thinking. Now, they're not called commandments because in no way does Satan command others to do what he believes. Unlike the 10 commandments of God, claim all should follow. I'm going to go through both the 10 and the 9 and compare the two so you can see the differences. God commands you shall not have any other gods. not to make yourself a carved image, and not to take the Lord's name in vain. In my opinion, all this means is God is the only one and other scriptures are evil. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams, undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit, and indulgence instead of abstinence. This means one should live how they choose, embrace what life offers rather than seeking spiritual truths that are thought abstract. True wisdom isn't from religions, but from one's own personal experiences. That Satan promotes rational thoughts and self-discovery over religious moral code and social norms. Honor your father and your mother teaches love, respect, and gratitude for not just your parents, but to others as well. Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it, instead of love wasted on ingrates. Essentially, don't waste all that on people that you deem not worth it. I think both are self-explanatory. Shall not murder is right to the point, but Satanism claims vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. The Bible teaches murders regardless of the situation is wrong, but Satanism doesn't claim that murder is right, but it depends on the situation. If someone was to murder someone you love and you see killing them the only acceptable justice, then act on that instinct. However, it does play into our next statement. Satanism says responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. If you see murder to someone is the right form of justice, then do it, but take responsibility for such action. This would also fall in the same with the commandments of shall not commit adultery, steal, and bear false witness against your neighbor. If you want to live your life indulging in, let's say, cheating on your partner, then do it. But you're responsible for the consequences. Same goes with stealing and lying. Live your life how you want. Don't do it because God tells you so, but be ready to take responsibility for your actions if someone else seeks vengeance upon you. For the psychic vampires part, that's just a metaphor for individuals that exploit others for their own benefits. Also, I'm not saying one side is better than the other, but both are right in their own way. Both sides are just different ways to look at life. If you truly believe in God's words, then to me that's alright with me. It goes the same for Satanism. However, this goes back to the beginning of the story. Neither side is right or wrong. I believe they promote ways of living your life how you see fit. It's the fanatics on both sides that ruin it for others. The last commandment I forgot to mention is, shall not covet. This applies to the 7 deadly sins, which are pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. Satan represents the all so-called sins as they lead to physical and mental or emotional gratification. This is just everything I've already said. Live your life how you want. Moving on to the golden rule, treat others as you wish to be treated. This goes back to Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it. For example, my circle of people is small, and I know how they treat me and vice versa. I've learned being helpful and kind to strangers is great, but not to expect the same thing back, as to some they see this as a benefit for themselves. For that, I keep a small group consisting of friends and family. These people get the true version of me, the version I've made for myself. I've presented this to others before, but in some cases, it's fucked me over. So I only treat the ones that I choose the way I want to be treated. So I take both these statements as how to be happy with myself. So lastly, let's finish this off with the last 2 satanic statements I haven't mentioned. Satan represents man as just another animal, sometimes better, more often worse than those that walk on all fours, who, because of this, divine, spiritual, and intellectual development has become the most vicious animal of all. And finally, last but not least, number 9, Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years. That statement is very true. Without the devil, the church probably would cease to exist, because every good story needs a villain. The Book of Satan challenges the original 10 Commandments and the Golden Rule. This book promotes a more tooth-for-tooth way of thinking. It identifies humans as just mere animals that instinctively act on lust and carnal desire. The sins in the Christian Bible are just natural human traits. Anton suggests doing what you love and what makes you happy. Live the life you want to live, not how the Holy Bible claims how you need to live. It questions what really considered good and evil. Like the sins the Holy Bible calls evil, are they truly evil? For example, having sex before marriage is considered a sin, falling under sexual immorality. With Satanism, would challenge that, as humans are just animals. It's in our nature to want sex. We were made for creating life, and as of today, enjoying the pleasures. Satanism would promote you doing what you feel is right, and not to be afraid of the repercussions to our soul. The Book of Lucifer has the most of the philosophy, challenging the ideas that God is good and Satan is evil. With its alternative view, it urges to take action to fix situations, instead of praying for an answer to a God that may or may not exist. It goes into deep context of the commandments and the statements to which one can interpret themselves. It also goes into deep exploration of the 7 deadly sins as natural human pleasures and not evil acts. This book also contains the list of the 4 princes of hell: Satan, Lucifer, Belial, and Leviathan. They're like a mirror image of the 4 archangels that I've mentioned in the beginning. This book also contains the complete list of infernal names. These are the names of the devil from other countries and religions. Some, for example, are Belial, Behemoth, Beelzebub, and Asmodeus. The longest chapter of this book, titled Satanic Sex, explores the ideas of sexual freedom. It denies the belief that sex is important and a participation in orgies and other acts are forced. It's encouraged to explore one's sexualities as they see fit, if it doesn't harm other people. Satanism is often painted with rumors about rituals that involve sex, human and animal sacrifice for evil purposes. Anton addresses these claims by saying the only time human sacrifice is necessary when it applies to 2 goals. 1, to release a magician's wrath, as the individual had previously performed a curse on another, and the second goal is sacrificing someone as punishment as they lost the right to live. There is no mention animal sacrifice in this book, as animals are innocent and we shall not harm them. Anton had a love for animals, as he was often seen with his black leopard named Zoltan. The third book, titled The Book of Belial, describes the use of rituals and magic. Anton adapted these from many books on the subject, most notably from the famous Aleister Crowley. Crowley was an English occultist and claimed magician. Crowley practiced many dark rituals in the name of Satan in the late 1800s. In the future, I would love to do a Crowley story because it's such a wild tale about this man. And yes, to some of my music lovers out there, Mr. Crowley by Ozzy is all about him. Back to Belial, Anton explains in depth about these practices. For example, he explains on how to control someone using 3 qualities: sex appeal, sentiment, and wonder. Other rituals for sex, compassion, and destruction are explored. Sex is used to entice or intrigue another person. Compassion helps improve your health, intelligence, and success, and more. And destruction is simply to destroy another. For the 4th and last book, the Book of Leviathan, it explores the use of spoken words and one's emotions for effective magic. With this, the 3 rituals from Belial's book, there's invocations to Satan that are needed. Speaking the names of the infernal, it harnessed the dark forces in the command of Satan. These are the ingredients needed for these rituals to work properly. The Book of Leviathan also explores the angel language into more lengthy depth, as these symbols are more important as well during these rituals. The creation of the Bible has been deemed an evil document by the Christian Church over the many years, as Anton has dealt with many controversies since its publication. For some of the believers, they look to this as a way of having a better life. Most Satanists just enjoy the fun of it, especially when the 80s really dived into this world. For the music of the 80s, rock and roll was a favorite among many. To the devout Christians, this was the music of the devil. Anton himself would have to deal with what came about with Satanism, especially in this time, as he believed he wasn't preaching anything harmful, but to others, this Bible created a time when the devil was trying to corrupt the youth and future generations. This was called the Satanic Panic, and it's here that we will continue next week for the rest of the story. Also, I want to say for the record, prior to this episode, I discovered Satanism myself, and I own a copy of the Bible. I've read it a few times, and I'm happy to say that I am myself a Satanist. Hail Satan, everyone. Join me next Saturday as we explore the 80s and the Satanic Panic that rocked North America. If you have any stories you wish for me to cover in the future, send them to northernnightmares@outlook.com. Hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you listen to my show to get notified when new episodes drop. I'll see you soon. Good night, and remember, nightmares are closer than you think.